Hey guys, welcome back to Meeple. I want to apologize to all of you. I know many of you have been following along. I had bronchitis, still kind of do, but my voice is back. You will also notice that I am not in the Meeple studios. I am hanging out in Northern Illinois, and we're in the Tabletop Vibes studio. So thank you to Adam for lending us his space. And today it's lightning in a box. Can fury of the elements catch fire? That is today's title. And with me is Mark Simansky. Did I say that right, Simansky?
You did.
Mark Simansky, who is the designer of Fury of the Elements. Mark, thanks for joining.
Hey,
Appreciate
thanks for having me. Appreciate
Absolutely. No, this is great. I'm back in the saddle, so this feels good to be back sharing with my viewers. Mark, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into the board game hobby in the
vivid imagination, and you want to really strike the hearts of everybody.
Right.
So I'm kind of a perfectionist. So I pulled back a little bit and said, what can I do that I can do mostly on my own? And I know I can pull a few people in to help when I need it.
Right.
I was running our local game store at the time, and real into TCGs and some other card games. And that's when lightning hit. I love that. That's great. What was the first board game that you played that you were like, I'm hooked. I'm going to be playing this. I'm going to be in this forever. Man, we've played a lot of games, a lot of older games. I don't get to play as much now.
Sure.
I play quite a few, but my brother-in-law actually really got me into playing tabletop games. So I'd say one of my favorites that really is like, yeah, I really want to do this is Firefly.
Firefly. Man, that's a good one.
Yes, and I was a big Firefly fan. My whole family is. So it was great. Yeah, I really liked it. And yeah, you can't beat Captain now.
No, you're absolutely right. So questions about lightning in a box. We have lightning in a box right here. Guys, this is Fury of the Elements. I'm sorry that the microphone is splitting the box, but you can see that here. I know most of you are sitting in your cars, not even watching the video, but why don't you tell us about Fury of the Elements? What kind of game is it? What's its key mechanics?
So it's a 2-player strategy card game. Now they're being more called expandable card games.
Okay.
Trying to kind of bring back that whole LCG.
Yeah.
The living card game environment where they were real hot for a while, and they've kind of petered off a bit. I think this is kind of, you're seeing a lot of games that are in the same realm, but they're doing things a little bit different. I don't want to say this is in the same realm as an LCG, but it does have kind of that, this game's going to keep going for a while, and it's a 2-player strategy card game. You're playing on a grid. You have positional based movement when you're playing the cards down to attack another card. It's very similar it's inspired by Triple Triad, which is a mini game off of Final Fantasy series.
Okay.
All right. So for those of you watching that know Final Fantasy, you'll know that game well.
I do not know Final Fantasy, so I hope you guys do and you enjoy that.
If you want another comparison, just so you kind of know what it is, while this game is not a trading card game, it's not a TCG,
okay, good to know.
It is still similar in the realm of games like Paragon TCG and Never Rift TCG, kind of in the look of, hey, we all use positional based combat. Okay. So we're going to play a card down. It's got arrows or numbers like their games, and that dictates the direction that it attacks when it goes down.
So are you attacking your opponent, or are you attacking the cards, or the Titans, I believe they're called in the game?
So yeah, there's a bunch of different card types, and the cards that are actually being played down are from 2 different decks. The decks mirror each other. So the game is completely 100% balanced right out of the box.
Okay, balance is good.
Unlike a trading card game, and some people would argue that balance is boring. I beg to differ, and this game has been said to have the perfect balance cycle. So
nice.
That was a really big compliment that I got on it. So yeah, but so you're not really attacking your opponent.
Okay.
What you're trying to do is, there's 2 different modes of the game.
Okay.
You have Fury, which is a 3x3 grid, similar to Triple Triad. And then we extend it, and that's kind of like the simple mode, gets you the idea of how combat works.
Right.
Then we extend it to a 5x5, and we throw in some other decks. So while the decks mirror each other, and they have the same cards in there, the same elements, all the same positions, the game is different because you're actually, unlike a lot of these other games where you're playing grid-based, when I'm playing across from my opponent, they're playing their card the same direction I'm playing in those games. And I don't understand that or why. So I was real adamant about, no, You're on your side of the table. You're going to play your cards face up to you. I'm going to play mine face up to me. So it kind of turns it into like they're completely different because they're positioned differently, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a position-based combat game. It is. There's a lot of strategy involved, and we can get more into that as we go here.
So you mentioned some other games that it was like. We've talked before the recording about kind of the evolution of the idea of Fury of the Elements. So what was going on? What was your inspiration that you like? What did you see in the TCG and the LCG world that you didn't like, or you did like, and you were like, I think I can make this better, or I can do this as well? What was going on at that time when you came up with the idea for this game?
So at that time, I was running our local game store as the manager there. Magic, TCG, big game,
right?
Every store, right? Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh! Those were like the big three,
right?
I was playing a different trading card game that was actually really growing and blowing up in our store, and actually almost worldwide for a good solid 4 years, called Force of Will TCG. So that game had some inspiration.
And this game came from Japan, right?
That was a Japan TCG, And
Force of Will. I love that.
It was a really solid game at the time. So it was some of the inspiration for this. Obviously, I'm really big into video games. So playing all the Final Fantasies growing up, everything. The best thing, some people are going to hate me for this, but as much as I still like the game, the best thing about Final Fantasy VIII was Triple Triad. It was the mini game that was actually in the game that hooked me. That I spent so many hours running around trying to beat everybody, get their cards, and build decks, and and keep going. So it was that feeling of how quick that game was to play, and seeing how sometimes in TCGs, when you're playing, you can't even get through one round. I played in tons of tournaments, and you sit down and you build this deck, and you're like, okay, by turn 7, I can beat them with this, this, and this, right? And it doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes you don't even get through the first game in the round, and it affects your whole tournament standing. So I was like, what if, we could make a game that could play in 5 to 10 minutes with the smaller version, the 3x3.
Right.
And if people just wanted to play that, or it was a simple version, they could play it over a cup of coffee, a beer, whatever, because that's all they had time for. Because face it, that is all people have time for sometimes.
It's true. It's very true.
So I would say Triple Triad and a handful of TCGs, especially Force of Will, were inspirations. Trying to fix some things that were wrong. Well, I can't really say wrong. I'd say for trading card games, they're persistent problems where you're getting mana flooded, mana ramped. I'm using Magic as an example for this one. Force of Will was a little bit different, and it didn't quite work the same, but the idea of having to get resources, having to get the cards you need, and then trying to pull off playing them just to have everything canceled, and you might as well get up from the table and walk away.
Well, you and I talked about this, right? We talked about the fact that you build a theme deck because you're attached to the theme. You have a love for the theme, right? And I am going to use Magic the Gathering just for a moment. It's my wife built a cat deck. She loves cats, right? That is the sole reason why she built the deck. It wasn't what the cards could do. Then we go and play at the local game store. They were friends of ours, but they were more seasoned, and she got wiped out pretty quickly. And I know that's frustrating. That was frustrating for me to watch. It's also frustrating as a card game player when I design a game. And so it sounds like you noticed that was problematic.
Yeah, I have a kind of a unique experience here with my resume. So I literally have been on both sides of the counter. I've also worked for distributor.
Okay.
So I talk to store owners and managers on a regular basis. So now that I'm full into design mode, I've talked to a lot of designers too. So it's taking a lot of information that I've gained over the years and combining it with information from every different spectrum of the community that we're trying to serve.
Right.
And I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. I'm not trying to make the best game in the world. I'm trying to make a game that people will enjoy no matter what they play. If you're a championship Magic player, you're probably still going to enjoy this because it can be just as competitive, but it's more skill-based.
Okay.
So, yeah, the skill is there. While there's luck, because it's a card game, you got to draw cards.
Sure.
You have that luck. I have extensively gone through to try and make everything balanced in those decks. So your 2 power card decks in there are one for each player. There's 60 cards, and there's 4 elements in those decks. It took a while to get this math right and all the combinations.
Okay.
But when we finally landed on the magic number per element, everything clicked. And it's 15 cards per element, because that gives me, with numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 for the power levels of these cards, it gives me every combination that the arrows could be in, period. Every combination, 1 through 4. So on the fours, on the fours, there's only 4 number 4 cards in the deck.
Okay.
One of each element.
Okay.
Because you can only have those fours in those arrows in one position, right? Right. And then for the threes, there's different combinations of where the 3 arrows would be with one open spot.
Oh, okay.
Same thing with the twos. There's 6 of those, and then there's 4 ones. It's the same thing, right? Twos are kind of unique because you can do the up and down, left and right, as well as right,
Well, yeah.
So it took a while to figure out, like, okay, the game evolved from what we were originally doing, and things just kind of fell into place once we got that magic number.
Right.
We're like, oh, let's keep these single colors. Let's put all 4 colors in the deck, and we have 60 cards.
Wow.
People who play Magic are going to feel right at home with that.
Yeah,
right?
That's in the wheel. So let me ask you a question, because for my viewers, I have not played this game, only tangentially was looking through the contents before recording. I noticed that there's some dice. Yep. Can you tell me what role the dice play in the game?
Yeah, sure. Right now, they play a very small role.
Okay.
You'll notice that if you saw them, there are 6 colors.
Yes.
So we have 6 elements in the game. Okay. So we've got fire, water, earth, air, and then we've got what's called void and balance.
Oh, okay.
So you have your 4 normal elements, and then you've got these 2. Like, what the heck are these? Well, they're kind of the storytellers of the game. Everything revolves around these 2 elements, and the other ones are kind of along for the ride.
Okay.
So yeah, so basically with those elements, there's so many different combinations you can do, and we can sit here and make cards and keep going,
right,
combining them, and we probably will get to that at some point. But yeah.
So do you foresee, because you talked about it, you see it as an LCG, living card game. Do you see it as like big box expansions, or like just booster blister pack types of expansions? How are you envisioning that going forward?
Well,
if I'm allowed to ask that question, okay.
It's one of our key selling points for the game. Really, we've developed what's called a modular deck system.
Modular deck system.
Yeah.
How does that work?
So how this works is you've got the 2 power decks that have the elements in them. Those are the cards that the players are generally playing on the field of battle. Okay. We've thrown in some spells. We've thrown in some void cards. We've thrown in some titans. We'll get into those later. But those are all different decks as well.
Okay.
They all serve a purpose, and how you get those out on the field and what you do is all trigger based. It's different every time you play.
Right.
So to get these decks using the modular deck system, if this box in here is the Kickstarter exclusive box, this has the same stuff inside that the retail version will have. If we wanted to take one of those void decks, which consists of 25 cards, and say we make an expansion down the line,
okay,
and we want to do something small, we're like, hey, this is a really cool idea just for the void cards,
right?
Which we actually did backwards.
Okay.
It's kind of interesting. Thank you, Gen Con. So basically, all you have to do is just, when you set up the game, you take that void deck out and you put the other one in, and your play experience is completely different.
Wow.
And it's like that for the spell decks. It's like that for the Titans as well.
So talk about the reverse engineering of that, right?
Okay. So
I don't want to let that fall. Tell us about that.
Reverse is actually a term of ours.
Okay, reverse.
Yeah. So the game goes beyond just using the elements in a normal hierarchy, right?
Okay.
So what happened at Gen Con? So to stay on the topic of the void cards, the game was a little more complex for the full version of the 5x5, the Titan's Fury mode.
Okay.
Okay. So when we're explaining to people, everybody caught on to everything quick. But the void mechanic was a little extensive. It was a little too much, just a little too much to swallow when you're trying to learn a game without reading the rule book.
Okay.
And ask me to explain to you really quickly, because we're trying to, you're at Gen Con and people are coming up and you're trying to get them seated and get to playing, right?
Okay.
So they can test it out. So we had arrows like we have on the power cards, positions, right? Well, we have a grid on our playmat. It's 5x5, and there's designations on the void cards of where those go.
Okay.
How they come out doesn't really matter right now, but they have a spot.
Okay.
So originally, the original design had arrows on those as well, and they were different for each spot that they were on. They pointed different directions.
Right.
So when a void card came out, it interacted with not just the card in its space, but wherever it was pointing as well. It's a really cool mechanic, and it gets a little more extensive from that. So we felt like, you know what? It's really good and people really like it.
Right.
But it's a little too much to bite on right now.
Okay.
So we want to keep this game streamlined. You can't make a game for everybody, but we are trying to make it where as many people can play it as possible, where they don't feel overwhelmed.
Sure.
That's different age ranges. We had so many different age ranges playing this. It was great. But so what we did was we rolled back the void mechanic a little bit, and we simply took the arrows off and put that mechanic on hold. So now the only interaction is when the void card comes out, it interacts with the card in its space.
Okay.
That's it.
So all this came out in a 4-day play testing at Gen Con.
A 3-day for us, yeah. Because
3
Sunday
days.
we took off to actually try and enjoy the con a little
Good
bit.
for you.
We flew back home to California.
Good for you. People tend to forget, like if you're a designer and you're working the con, you need to take a day for yourself.
It was a lot of work.
So I want to ask you, this has been if everyone has been listening, this theme about emotions, vulnerability, and community, right? This has been the theme of my episode for so long. And I want to ask you about the play testing, right? Mm-hmm. I guess it's a twofold question. I guess the first part of the question is, how easy was it for you to be vulnerable, to open yourself up to all the possible opinions during this 3-day play testing? And then second of all, how did that go? How successful were you, and how successful did you get? Talk to me about that.
All right. So I've got a lot of management experience, and you've always got higher ups trying to tell you how to do this, how to do that.
Right.
I'm pretty resistant. I'm kind of the kind of guy that pushes back a little bit, right?
Okay.
Especially if I'm proven myself time and time again, then I'm kind of the resistant one. But it took a little bit for me to figure out how exactly to do this. And one of the master classes I was in of Justin Gary's, he talked about, you've got to be vulnerable. You've got to be able to take criticism, positive, negative, and run with it. So because of going, and this Gen Con 2023 was the first public outing for the game, where we actually introduced it to the world. Over 3 days, we had well over 86 people play test it just at Gen Con. So preparing for that, I had to steel myself and say, no matter what they say, take the feedback, listen to it, and even if I don't agree with it, try and find the value in it.
That's not an easy task.
No.
That's very difficult.
So whether it's, all feedback is valuable. And you might get something that's just like, well, that was, okay, whatever, right. Didn't see that coming or whatever. And 9 times out of 10, I'll be completely transparent here. When you're a designer and you've gone through one of the secret sauces of game design, which is iteration, most likely I've already come up with what anybody else is going to come up with, right? But you never know. And there might just be some little thing that pops up, and there was. There was this, it was perfect. So this young gentleman came up and played on the Thursday.
Okay.
And he said, man, I asked him, just like I asked everybody, I said, hey, did you win or lose? I lost. Okay. Let me ask you this. Did you have fun? Yes.
Good question.
I did my job then. If you have fun losing, that should be a decent game.
I agree.
Right? So he gave us one piece of feedback. He's like, there's just one thing that nags at me with this. And he's like, your spell cards, I love what they do when I can use them. I was like, okay. He's like, I can't use them because basically you get the spell cards are on what's called a clash deck. Okay. A clash spell deck. And the top
That's
card,
one of the 2 decks.
It's one of those decks. Right?
Okay.
It's one of those other decks that I was talking about.
Okay.
Right? The 25 card deck. And the top card is face up.
Okay.
So, and this is kind of odd because most people would expect to be face down and they're just going to draw it.
I agree.
But there's a method to this madness, and we've play tested multiple times every way you can think of. This is what we settled on because it was the highest stakes. Because now you know what you're playing for. You know what you're fighting for. So what you're trying to do is, that spell deck is a community deck. So when you do a certain mechanic, it unlocks the ability for you to get one of those spells. And then the next one flips over. Okay. Some of them have field effects that affect everything instantly until somebody gets it.
Right.
And then some of them are cards that you use when you want to. Not instant speed. It's not like a trading card game where you can react and dump your hand or anything like that. You can't. It's very specific. Everybody gets to play, and that's, again, another reason why it's so balanced. Okay. It's very quick. I'm playing a card, you're playing a card. Okay, cool. I'm going to do another interaction now. I'm going to, before I play card out of my hand, I'm going to play this spell card that I won earlier, which goes in one of 2 spell slots for you to save. Spell slots, and there's reason. There's 2. There's a reason. We'll talk about that reason another time.
All right.
2 slots, and you can save those spells for later for when you need them. So the piece of feedback we got was, hey, is there a way I can use this later, or is there some other thing we could do with the spell to make it useful all the time? The game is very situational based, meaning that because you still have RNG from all these decks, including your own decks, and they're still balanced, meaning you can always play something. It doesn't always mean that the effect that a Titan has or the effect that a spell has is going to be what's needed right at the moment. And that's okay, because that's part of the charm of the game. If you had every tool in your arsenal at every given moment and could do everything, then it wouldn't really be fun, right?
Right.
There's got to be some restriction. Right. So he asked us that, and we went back that night to the hotel room, my co-designer Omar and I, and our friend Zach, who was helping at the con. We talked about it, and we're like, you know what? Let's, for the rest of the con, put a static ability that we'll just tell everybody, hey, there's a hidden ability on the card that isn't there. It's because it's a piece of feedback we got. Okay. We want to try it out. It's playtesting, so go for it.
Right.
So what we did was we said that while all these spells have their own effects, we gave a static effect across the deck that says, hey, draw 2 cards and put back any 2 you don't want at the bottom. Everybody that plays card games, especially trading card games, loves deck filtering.
Sure.
So
absolutely.
It was that I was so happy with that piece of feedback, and then being able to come up with a resolution so quickly, and it stuck. The second we did that, he came back on Saturday, and I told him, he was just like, perfect.
That was what he was looking for.
Perfect.
Nice.
So, yeah. So it kind of got me right here, you know?
Yeah. And I imagine that motivated you beyond Gen Con when you got home, right?
Oh, yeah. So he's not the only one who gave us feedback. We took feedback sheets.
Yep.
We did a little, just real quick for them. Didn't take any personal information, which might have been a mistake, but I was trying to respect people's privacy.
I get it.
You know? But we took all this feedback that they gave us, and I went through most of it, and I was like, okay, most of this, it's good feedback, but it's stuff we've already tried or stuff that's not going to work. Some of this stuff will work later, and we've already got plans for that. So hopefully they'll stick around and they'll see that, hey, we did listen.
Right.
And we were thinking on the same page as them, just not for the base game. So, yeah, I was real happy with that outcome. I was real happy with it.
Was there any, during that 3 days, was there a moment where the feedback was, either the feedback was difficult or the person giving it was difficult? I mean, we're all human, right?
Yeah. Definitely.
So you told me a good story. Was there an opposite story? And if so, how did you deal with that?
This is going to blow your mind.
You're going to tell me there wasn't.
And this is
no one had anything negative to say.
It's not that they didn't have anything negative to say, because I wrote down everything, went through everybody's survey, and there was a little bit of negativity, but it wasn't what I expected. I expected people to straight up say, this game's trash, I don't like it, get it off the table, don't even think about it, whatever. None of that. Absolutely none.
Wow.
The most negative thing we got was the spell card issue, and the void was too complicated. There was just too much to swallow. And then there were a few situations that just came up with cards being played a certain way that we hadn't fully realized like that could be done. Didn't see that one coming. We thought we saw all the situations. There's a few we didn't see. That was it. Out of like 86 people, that was it. So that right there told me that, okay,
you've got a good product.
We're on the right track.
Right.
Now let's go back and give them all the visual stuff that they want to see. They want to see more stuff on the cards to differentiate them between each other. So one power deck is purple. It's accented with purple on the back and the front. Okay. And then the other one is yellow. There's a reason for this.
I saw the yellow cards.
I'll get into the reason in a second, but they wanted just a little bit more visibility to just make them a little more distinct.
Okay.
It's one thing you're playing them upside down from each other. That should be a pretty good indicator, but sometimes all those colors can blend, especially if you're colorblind.
Yes.
Which brings me to my next point. We designed Fury of the Elements to be accessible to colorblind.
Okay.
That is why we used purple and yellow.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know a lot about visual impairments or color blindness in particular. Talk to me about that.
So I'm not saying that it's perfect. We did our best to do some research.
Okay.
And we have a very close friend that's really colorblind.
Okay.
So we figured we would use purple. Well, we researched that purple and yellow were two really good contrasting colors that allow them, if they can't still see the color, that they are starkly different, that they stand out.
Okay. See, I didn't know that. Good to know.
Not only does it fit our theme, because balance is yellow and void is purple,
okay,
there was an underlying reason for using them, and that was it. So in addition to that, outside of color, we made sure that we put the elements or any important information that's visual where it can always be seen, whether the cards in your hand. I moved an emblem from the Gen Con version of the element under the number. So when you're holding them in your hand, you've got the element and the number.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if you can see the color or not.
That's cool.
Everything.
Okay.
Everything is set up that way.
I love
the Titan cards, the spell cards, everything.
So there's also an interesting component. One of the things when I was getting ready for this episode and I was reading the rules a little bit, I noticed so there's 6 elements and you can, I don't know if manipulate the right word, and I don't know that this game inspired it, but this is what I thought. And please remember, I have not played the game yet. So I'm going to learn this weekend. I got the feeling of Uno, right? Whatever your opinion on Uno is. But I was thinking, because there's a way where red beats green, but you could somehow reverse that. Okay,
now you remember how I said reverse was one of our
here we go, reverse.
Okay, so Uno was also an inspiration for it too, but when you're talking about the game, you're trying to do a tagline, something real quick, 2 sentences, you can't say it was inspired by 15 games.
No, you can't.
You got to cut it down. You got to do something. So I went with Triple Triad. Originally it was Triple Triad Magic the Gathering, but that's mainly because of the spell art and the spell types and stuff like that. It's familiar, but reverse. So I was looking at Uno deck, and when we first designed Fury, we started with 52 cards, an actual playing card deck.
Okay.
Because there's 4 suits.
Right.
And we wanted 4 elements on the power cards.
Okay.
Those are the only ones we were worried about at the time.
Right.
Void and balance were for something else. So we're like, okay, well, what are we doing? So originally we actually had 1 through 13 because, well, there's 13 cards per suit, right?
Right.
But we had the void cards in your hand. We had some cards that were called charge cards that did kind of like a wild card out in the field. And it was cool. But as we refined it, like I said earlier, and we got down to that magic number and the way everything worked, we scrapped that. But that was the original inspiration. Now, Uno, it's funny you bring that up because, yes, I used kind of the color scheme.
Okay.
Why did I use the color scheme? Well, I mean, they're elements. They're going to have that red, blue, green,
obviously.
But Uno's very familiar to a lot of people.
It is.
A lot of people.
It is.
So it's very simple. You see a color and a number. Some of them have symbols.
Right.
That's it. If you look at my power cards, you have a number, a symbol, and some arrows. The picture on there is just for flavor. The only text on that card is the name of the creature that's on it. That's
Fair point. Okay.
It was to keep it simple. So using Uno as an inspiration for that was actually a really, I think, good idea, because keeping the base part, the combat, simple in terms of not having to read a card and just play it, speeds up the game. Keeping the other spells to 1 sentence or so also lends to that. But reverse, we have a special card, and it's in every one of our games that we've designed. And we're trying to make sure that mechanic is in every game we design. For the Fury of the Elements universe, we have other games too, but for that, this is our front runners. We have a card that's called an Elemental Reverse card.
Okay.
So it's cool when you play Pokemon and you've got this big hierarchy. This beats this, beats this, beats this, and just goes around, right? A big circle. Well, we're like, we're not going to get into that many elements because that's just too complex for a card game. So we'll simplify it. We'll use the 4. What could we do to spice this up? I want to do something where we can reverse something here. Like I want to change the game state.
Right.
Yep. Reverse the elements.
Nice.
So you have this card, and on one side, it has a normal hierarchy that you would expect. Water beats fire, fire beats land, land beats air, air beats water, right? Got to have something. And in some other games, that hierarchy changes a little bit based on however they design it. So it's somewhat different in a few other games. But for the gist of it, that's a normal hierarchy. And that's cool. But it'd be really cool if you could literally reverse it and then make everything in your hand play completely different.
Wow.
So your 60 card deck just became 120.
Yeah.
Because now you can, because cards that you were going to play that were like maybe a filler move, you're like, oh, I'm going to play this one, because it's the best play here. I don't want to. I got these trump cards in my hand. I don't want to expose these too early. It's not worth playing these to capture these cards because I'm only going to get 1 or 2. I want to try and save it to get a big pull, right? Well, what if you, like a problem in TCG, you got a handful of stuff you can't use, whether it's land, whether it's spells because you don't have the land.
That's a problem.
Or the
that
resource,
is definitely
right?
a problem.
So this was another way to kind of fix that.
I like it.
So no resources.
No
resource management.
That's incredible.
No resources. And you'll thank me later because the game flows so smooth. It's just so quick. It's like chess. You want to plan a few moves ahead.
Right.
And sometimes there'll be a little bit of analysis paralysis because there are some hidden stuff that unless you've played the game a few times or you just really catch on to it real quick and you can see it, there are some amazing combos you can pull. The whole point is to capture your opponent's cards and collect them, and that becomes your point total at the end of the game. So when you're doing that, you're trying to play these 1 through 4 cards to capture as many at one time as you can. So the fours are extremely powerful in that regard because they can attack 4 ways. They can potentially take 4 cards. But what if you could take 12 with one play?
I mean, that's kind of a bold move, yeah.
So when you combo off with a spell, a Titan ability, and the power card you play, and then you get to follow up with another power card because that spell told you to play a power card, and you still have to play your power card per turn, and draw back up to your maximum hand size so it stays even.
Right.
Yeah, you can pull off some crazy combos.
Wow.
So, like I said, at the end of the day, it's a strategy card game. It's an expandable card game through the modular deck system. And I love trading card games. There's always a place for them.
Right.
There's a lot of them coming out. A lot of really good ones have come out.
It's true.
I didn't want to compete with that.
Sure.
It started off being designed as one, but at the end of the day, you should never design your first game as a trading card game.
That's sound advice.
Because the resources you need to actually pull that off are insane. So, while I know some of you at home are probably doing just that. Good luck. I wish you the best success in that. But I would tell you, if you could put that aside or refine it down to a base game like we did with this, then lead into that or make it a separate game in the same universe because you like the theme and you want to link them, that would be my advice, is do something like that. Because there's a lot to learn. I knew a lot about game design. Like when I joined Justin Gary's masterclass, everybody was looking at the game like, is this game done? Like already? Because the art, like one of the biggest compliments we get, especially at Gen Con, the artwork
is amazing.
And art from a visual standpoint sells games. So we wanted to have good artwork.
Absolutely.
But selling a game and keeping a customer for life because the game's good.
Right. Yeah. That's a big one. So we've talked about all this playtesting back in Gen Con 2023. Here we are 2 years later. What is the current status of Fury of the Elements?
The game was supposed to originally launch last March. It was done.
Yeah.
I took all that feedback from Gen Con. I had it done in the airport on the way home from Gen Con. I've been a graphic designer for 25 years. So that lended me the ability to actually create the game from the design point. I didn't have to wait on a graphic designer. I didn't have to shell out the money for that. I've spent thousands of hours. Yeah, thousands doing this.
Thousands of hours, folks.
So that's a challenge, but yeah.
You've got a Kickstarter launch page right now.
Yes, there is a pre-launch page up. The game itself it's done. It's ready to go. Okay. Everything you saw on the box earlier, there'll be other videos where you'll see components and whatnot, but everything is done. Nothing's changing now mechanic-wise. It's good to go. We could have launched last March. There was a series of unfortunate events that happened. And hey, life happens, you know? But it's ready to go. I'm trying to get the advertising funds to do the next round of ad testing and hope that people gravitate to it.
Sure.
And don't confuse it like they did last March during the ad testing as a trading card game, because Paragon and Never Rift TCG both came out at the same time, and Battle Grid wasn't far behind them or just ahead of them. So there were games out there that looked like mine. They were all trading card games. Fury is not a trading card game.
It is a strategy card game.
Yes.
Right. But that's very important. You made that clear multiple times.
Right. We tried to fix what people complained about trading card games.
Right.
We still made it competitive. We held a tournament last year at a con. Yeah. Crowned our first champion.
Hey, there you go.
So yeah, there's that. But yeah, we tried to fix all the problems that we recognize with trading card games, complaints that I used to hear in the store working or when I worked for the distributor where other managers and owners were talking to me like, hey, people complain about this. Is there another game that maybe doesn't have this type of mechanic that I could introduce to them? And that, again, all that stuff, my entire experience is what prompted that.
Yeah. So pre-launch page on Kickstarter. Anyone can go now and follow it.
You can follow
So
it.
make sure to do that. Check it out, Fury of the Elements. So here's I think my last question for you, right?
Sure.
It's pretty much the same question I've asked of every designer in the last few weeks, right? We have a trade war going on. The tariff situation with China is problematic and constantly in a state of flux, right? So what do you see as your biggest obstacle? What do you think about trying to launch this game, whether it be in the next month, this summer, in the midst of all that? How difficult is that going to be, and how do you brave through that?
It has already put challenges on us and we haven't even launched yet because we know that some backers, people that would normally back stuff, have backed off because they don't want to spend the extra money, and they're not wrong. They shouldn't have to. And I'm doing everything I can to absorb what I can. The game is mostly, I do have a co-designer and I do have a friend that helps with the marketing and stuff at cons, but the game's mostly done by me, one person. So it's outside of our commissioned artwork and licensed assets, stuff like that. But it's already a challenge enough. And now I've got to deal with this. I'm trying to raise funds so that I can do this for the rest of my life, because Fury's not just a game.
Right.
It's an entire universe. I've got 2 other games that are going to be on that Kickstarter with it in the same universe.
So you're planning on launching them together?
There was a silver lining to not launching last March. So the game Affinity War and Elemental Fury will also be there as add-ons. And they'll be included in, I think, the highest tier we have, they'll be included in there. Some of the stretch goals, you're going to want to follow this campaign.
I will say one of the things I've really enjoyed about what I've seen from the game has to do with, and I notice this a lot with designers, is the design of the box itself. One of our friends in England, Becky, Mrs. Get Into Games, she complains constantly about all the negative space, the empty space in a box. Right, you have a little card game and it's in this big box and there's all this cardboard that you get rid of. That's very frustrating. But here's the thing. So if you haven't gone to Kickstarter, look at this. I'm telling you, this is really cool. It has a neoprene mat and it rolls up and there's a slot where it fits. And I'm thinking of a couple of games recently where that's done. And I just want to say kudos. That right there is a huge design element that is just the chef's kiss, as someone would say.
Thank you. That was definitely one of the things I was adamant about. Everybody was like, Adam's got the prototype version in the box is this big. Everybody saw it at Gen Con. 200 cards fit in that just fine. But I was going above and beyond because I believe in value.
Yes.
So when you get this game, you get that neoprene mat. So I wanted a box that would fit the mat and expansions all in the box.
I noticed that too.
So back to the trade war stuff.
Right.
What else have I done? So I've opted to not do expansions in big boxes like this until later on. There will be one specific one because there was a sister box to this that people were expecting because they saw the artwork for it. We are saving it though. And it's actually a good thing we're saving it because it's going to be so much more special when they get that. But overall, all of our decks come in tuck boxes.
I noticed that.
All of the expansions they'll come in tuck boxes. Unless there's too many cards, then we'll make a box, but we won't go all out on it like we did with this. This is a very thick, heavy duty box. It is high gloss right off the bat. You're not getting matte printing. You're getting high gloss because I wanted the box to last longer. I wanted it to reflect UV light some.
Yep.
So it wouldn't be sun bleached. So neoprene matte. That was by design. I was adamant about it. Could I have done a smaller box, made this game cheaper? Sure.
Right.
But I found other ways to increase the value of it and what people are getting and fight the trade war in my own way by reducing waste and reducing what people would probably throw out anyway if I'm making a box like this to hold most of the stuff.
So I have to ask, and I'm sure you've already gotten this question from feedback from folks. Will the box be able to accommodate all the cards sleeved? And then the follow-up question is, are you doing an add-on or a stretch goal where you will have sleeves of the artwork itself?
So this is where I've had a hard time.
Sure.
I'm nobody. Okay. in this world right now, I'm nobody.
Right now. Okay.
So it's been very difficult partnering with people. I've been flat out ghosted, no responses for 3 months, multiple emails sent, phone calls. It's been a tough road. But we did partner with Titan Shield to provide sleeves on our second tier and above. Game comes with sleeves.
Game comes with sleeves.
And each tier, you get more and more because in those tiers, there's more stuff that's included that needs sleeves, including the other games.
Well, there you go. So it will hold sleeves and will come with sleeves at the second tier up.
The first tier I made super accessible to people. Yep. People are going to look at it and go like, why is this price?
Right.
Sure, I am kind of taking it in the shorts on that one, but my thing isn't so much the amount that the Kickstarter raises. It is to a degree. Full transparency there. We are trying to raise money.
Right.
But I'd rather have the volume and more customers so that all the games for the entire universe that we've got 10,000 years of lore laid out. We're doing games from card games to TTRPG. We want them to be on board.
Nice. It sounds like you're covering all the bases.
I am trying.
I love it. I think it's great. So it's Fury of the Elements, a strategy card game, not collectible or customizable card game. It sounds exciting. Where can people find you and where can they follow you and find Fury of the Elements?
Biggest places to follow us are on Instagram.
Okay.
Fury CG. Facebook. Just look up Fury of the Elements. Our website is furycg.com. Super simple.
furycg.com.
We are on Board Game Geek as well. And then our Kickstarter pre-launch page. You can go to the website. You can go to our Instagram. We've got that thing plastered everywhere. You can become a VIP if you want. And I understand the problem with that for some people, putting the $1 down. But I've made an out for everybody because I'm trying to make sure that bases are covered like you said.
Right.
If you don't like the $1 down, skip it. Go right to the Kickstarter page and just follow it.
Yeah. Check it out. If it looks good, if it looks like something you might want to back in the future, then, go ahead and follow it. I know that a lot of designers talk about it's really important to get the followers ahead of time and how that translates into backers. So, Mark, thank you so much for agreeing to come on the show, help me out a little bit to get my mojo back after being out for several weeks. And again, thank you to Adam from Tabletop Vibes for lending us his studio. And so when we're done, I think we're going to play Fury of the Elements, and I'm going to learn about Titans and Void and Balance and see how great these games really are. So thanks again, Mark.
Thank you for having me, and thanks, Adam, for letting us use your studio as I flew into California. Yep. Almost unannounced.
Almost, but he made it, so we're happy. So thanks again, guys, and tune in next week. We've got a lot more coming up. I've got some series planned. Gareth and I are talking about what's going to happen with the future of the podcast. So stay tuned, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. We are trying to get 100 subscribers by October, where it'll be a 1-year anniversary on YouTube. So thanks again, guys.